On his wedding anniversary, Elijah Blue Allman vanished, taken from a hotel by 4 men. The most shocking part? They may have been sent by his own mother, Cher. Elijah Blue Allman, the son of music legends Cher and Gregg Allman, was staying at a hotel in New York City with his wife, musician Marieangela King. The couple, known for their turbulent relationship, were reportedly attempting to mend their marriage on their anniversary, but that evening took a startling turn. According to a lawsuit filed by King, 4 unidentified men entered their hotel room without warning. They allegedly took Elijah by force, removing him from the premises. King claims that one of the men confessed they were acting at the request of Cher. The motive? According to King, it was a forced intervention, an attempt to place Elijah in a rehabilitation facility, allegedly against his will. The claim immediately ignited public debate. Was this the desperate act of a mother fearing for her son's life, or a troubling display of control from one of the world's most recognizable figures? On December 27, 2023, Cher filed a formal petition in Los Angeles Superior Court, seeking temporary financial guardianship over Elijah Blue Allman. In the documents, she described her son as suffering from serious mental health struggles and long-standing substance abuse, claiming he was no longer capable of managing his finances, specifically a trust fund inherited from his father, Gregg Allman. Cher expressed concern that without intervention, Elijah could misuse the money in ways that would jeopardize his health and safety. It was a move many interpreted as one of last resort, but Elijah saw it differently. Just 3 days later, in a statement to the Associated Press, Elijah pushed back forcefully. He insisted he was in good physical and mental health and confirmed he had been sober for over 90 days. Not only that, he had already filed a countersuit. In it, Elijah rejected the need for any guardianship at all, but if the court insisted, he requested that his wife, Marieangela King, serve in that role, not his mother. King's own filing echoed her husband's position, but went even further. She described Cher as unfit to manage Elijah's affairs, citing her past diagnosis of bipolar disorder and accusing her of using her maternal authority to dominate his life well into adulthood. For Elijah Blue Allman, the turbulence didn't begin in adulthood, it began at birth. Born in Beverly Hills on July 10, 1976, Elijah was the only child of rock icon Gregg Allman and pop superstar Cher. But the marriage that brought him into the world was already falling apart. Just 9 days after their wedding, Cher filed for divorce upon discovering Gregg's ongoing struggles with heroin and alcohol addiction. Although the couple made brief attempts to reconcile, the relationship officially ended when Elijah was just 3 years old. From then on, Cher became his primary guardian, but her presence in his life was often more symbolic than real. The late 1970s and early 80s were a peak period in Cher's entertainment career. With non-stop tours, recording sessions, and appearances across television and film, motherhood frequently took a back seat. Elijah, still a child, was raised more in dressing rooms and boarding schools than in the arms of family. By the age of 13, he joined his mother on tour, even playing guitar for her on stage and appearing in the music video for her hit song If I Could Turn Back Time. To outsiders, it looked like a dream come true, a teenager living the rock and roll fantasy. But Elijah would later describe it as something else entirely. He wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing attention. "I just wanted to be close to her," he once said, reflecting on a childhood shaped by distance and absence. "The stage was the only place she looked at me." As his mother soaked in the spotlight, Elijah struggled in the shadows. He was exposed to drugs at just 11 years old, a chilling echo of the addictions that tore apart his parents' marriage. And while his half-brother Chaz Bono later received public support from Cher during his coming-out journey, Elijah felt overlooked, even invisible. That contrast in treatment only deepened his feelings of isolation and abandonment. Behind the curtain of fame, the foundation of Elijah's life was quietly cracking. And it was those early fractures that would echo through every decision, every conflict, and every heartbreak that followed. While the Allman name carried the weight of musical legacy, Elijah Blue chose to carve out a space entirely his own, one that was darker, edgier, and worlds apart from the spotlight his parents had known. In the mid-1990s, Elijah formed the industrial rock band Deadsy. Embracing the alias P. Exeter Blue Eye, he abandoned the polished mainstream aesthetic of his mother's pop image in favor of haunting visuals, distorted guitars, and a deep sense of alienation woven into the music. The band's sound, a blend of heavy electronica, sci-fi-inspired themes, and eerie theatricality, was never designed for radio play. It was moody, subversive, and defiantly non-commercial. To fans, it was cult-worthy. To critics, puzzling. But to Elijah, it was personal. Through Deadsy, he was able to channel what he couldn't say out loud: pain, resentment, the struggle for autonomy, and the quiet rage of feeling unheard in his own family. The band released Commencement in 2002, followed by Phantasmagoria in 2006. In their music videos and live performances, Elijah often wore surreal makeup, blank stares, and unsettling costumes, presenting a persona that seemed deliberately designed to repel comparisons to Cher. But while the artistic statement was bold, the emotional reality was far more fragile. Even as Deadsy gained a loyal niche following, Elijah remained trapped in a cycle of inner turmoil. His battles with addiction were ongoing, and the catharsis of music was beginning to lose its power. In distancing himself from his mother's world, Elijah built one of his own, but it was a world equally haunted by instability, loneliness, and a growing sense that even self-expression couldn't save him from himself.
Beneath the artistic veneer of Elijah Blue Allman's career was a persistent struggle, one that began early and never truly let go. Elijah has openly shared that his use of drugs started when he was just 11 years old. What began as experimentation soon spiraled into full-blown heroin addiction throughout his teens and early adulthood. He described his substance use not as rebellion, but as survival, a coping mechanism for feelings of abandonment, instability, and emotional neglect. In 2008, he publicly announced that he had achieved sobriety. For a time, there was hope, a sense that the downward spiral might be slowing. But not long after, Elijah faced another debilitating challenge, a diagnosis of chronic Lyme disease. The condition, often misunderstood, can result in severe fatigue, cognitive issues, and chronic pain if left untreated. Elijah's symptoms were intense, both physically and mentally draining. But rather than receiving support, he claimed to have faced doubt from his own family. According to Elijah, his mother Cher didn't believe he was genuinely ill. Instead, she reportedly suspected exaggeration, paranoia, or even hypochondria. That disbelief cut deeper than the illness itself. In an interview, Elijah reflected, "It wasn't the pain that hurt most, it was not being believed by my own mother." Desperate for effective care, Elijah eventually sought treatment in Germany, where he said he finally found a doctor who took his symptoms seriously and provided relief. The validation was bittersweet. It proved to him that his suffering had been real, but it also solidified the emotional gulf that had formed between him and his mother. What could have been a turning point became another missed connection, a moment when healing was possible but trust remained out of reach. In 2013, Elijah Blue Allman made a private but deeply personal choice. He got married without inviting his mother. The bride was singer Marieangela King, a member of the pop group King. The wedding was intimate, with no public celebration and no family support, especially not from Cher. There was no congratulatory message, no photo of mother and son embracing. The silence spoke volumes. From the beginning, the marriage was marked by instability. Elijah and King went through frequent cycles of separation and reconciliation. Financial stress, emotional volatility, and the ongoing battle with Elijah's addiction loomed over the relationship. By April 2020, the couple had reportedly separated. In November 2021, Elijah filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Yet despite the filing, neither party appeared eager to finalize it. Legal proceedings dragged on, reflecting what insiders described as an emotionally entangled, codependent bond. But it wasn't just Elijah and King at the center of the conflict, Cher was too. In court filings, King accused Cher of orchestrating her husband's removal from a New York hotel in 2022, an incident King called a kidnapping. She claimed that 4 men broke into the room she shared with Elijah and forcibly took him away, one of them allegedly stating they had been hired by Cher. That sworn affidavit turned a private divorce into a public spectacle, a triangle of tension between husband, wife, and mother-in-law. Cher, for her part, denied the accusations in an interview with People magazine, stating, "That's not true. I'm a mother. I just did what I thought was necessary to save my child." But her legal silence on the matter only fueled speculation. Then, in an unexpected turn, Elijah withdrew the divorce petition in January 2024. It appeared the couple was attempting another reconciliation, even as Elijah's legal battle with Cher over guardianship was still underway. King's representatives confirmed the pair was trying to rebuild their relationship. Some speculated that Elijah, embattled and alienated from his mother, saw his wife as the last person still standing in his corner. But if the reunion offered a glimmer of hope, it would not last. The wounds, both personal and generational, were too deep to fully heal.
By the spring of 2025, what had once seemed like a fragile path toward healing had collapsed entirely, and this time, the world was watching. On April 8, 2025, Marieangela King filed for divorce again, but this time, the filing left no room for reconciliation. She described the marriage as irretrievably broken, citing irreconcilable differences and asking for financial support, including $6,000 per month in spousal maintenance, full use of their shared vehicle, or reimbursement if Elijah chose to keep it. More pointedly, she named her ongoing conflict with Cher as a key reason for the breakdown. In her court filings, King accused her ex-mother-in-law of interfering with her private life, alleging intrusions into her medical and financial affairs, and describing a toxic dynamic that she said pushed the marriage past its breaking point. Then, just weeks later, the public saw something they couldn't unsee. Elijah was photographed outside the Chateau Marmont Hotel in Los Angeles, a known haunt for celebrities and artists. But this wasn't a red carpet appearance. He looked frail, disheveled, and alarmingly detached. Photographers captured him with red rashes, unevenly glued artificial nails, and a vacant expression. The images quickly went viral, no caption needed. They told a story of visible decline. Since those photographs surfaced, Elijah has made no public appearances and issued no statements. His silence has been filled by court filings, third-party interviews, and media speculation. What remains of his public persona is no longer tied to music or art, but to a slow, visible unraveling, one that seems inescapably tethered to his family name. For a man born into fame, this was never the legacy he wanted, but now it was the only one the world could see. Behind the court documents, paparazzi photos, and tabloid speculation lies a quieter, more painful truth, one that speaks to what Elijah Blue Allman has always longed for: belonging. In the years following his public fallout with Cher, Elijah spoke only rarely to the media, but in one of those moments, he offered a sentence that revealed the root of his lifelong conflict. "I didn't want to be a burden, but I also didn't want to be erased." It was a revealing remark, one that captured his decades-long attempt to exist between two opposing forces: independence and protection, the need to be seen as an adult and the parallel need to be cared for as a child who never quite received enough affection. Following the failed guardianship attempt in early 2024, both Cher and Elijah agreed to withdraw from public confrontation. Cher dropped her petition. Elijah acknowledged that while her intentions may have come from concern, her actions made him feel betrayed. For a brief moment, it seemed like peace was possible, or at least distance. But when Marieangela King filed for divorce again in April 2025 and reignited her accusations against Cher, the possibility of family repair evaporated. Elijah once again found himself alone, estranged from his mother, separated from his wife, and struggling to re-establish any version of stability. In that void, the public returned to its familiar stance, observing, speculating, but never truly understanding.
His father, Gregg Allman, passed away in 2017 from complications related to liver cancer. In the months before his death, Elijah had reconnected with him, one of the few moments in his life where family ties felt real and secure. The contrast between that bond and the lifelong tension with his mother was stark and, to Elijah, quietly devastating. Today, Elijah Blue Allman is no longer musically active. His band, Deadsy, exists only in name and in the memories of a loyal fan base. His social media presence has gone quiet. His last appearances in the news weren't concerts or creative announcements. They were court hearings and candid photos of personal decline. In the end, Elijah's story is not just one of addiction, conflict, or fading fame. It's a story of a man who spent decades trying to be understood and found that neither fame nor family could guarantee that.
Elijah Blue Allman's story doesn't follow the arc we're used to seeing in celebrity culture. There was no meteoric rise to stardom, no spectacular fall from grace. Instead, his life has unfolded in the shadows of two towering legacies, Cher and Gregg Allman, with Elijah often cast as a supporting character in his own narrative. What makes his story so striking isn't just the public dysfunction, but the private ache that seems to echo through every chapter. A son caught between adoration and abandonment, an artist whose most powerful outlet eventually fell silent, a man trying to reconcile independence with the lasting scars of a complicated childhood. From allegations of forced interventions to bitter divorce proceedings and viral images of decline, the headlines have painted a portrait of chaos. But beneath them is a quieter reality, one of unresolved pain, misunderstood illness, and a yearning for unconditional love. Elijah's current status remains unclear. He has withdrawn from the public eye, no longer speaking through music, interviews, or statements. The silence itself has become part of the story. In a world so quick to categorize and comment, Elijah Blue Allman remains one of the more complex and perhaps tragic figures in modern fame, not because he lost everything, but because it's unclear if he ever truly had it. Elijah Blue Allman's journey forces us to confront an uncomfortable question: what happens when fame replaces family and legacy replaces love? In the public eye, celebrity families often seem untouchable, but behind closed doors, the pressures are magnified. Emotional distance gets dressed up as discipline, control is mistaken for care, and often the person at the center is the one most isolated by the very spotlight that's supposed to uplift them. Elijah wasn't simply a casualty of addiction or broken relationships. He was caught in a cycle where his pain was too public to ignore, but too personal to truly resolve. His silence today speaks volumes. It reflects not just withdrawal, but exhaustion, a quiet protest from someone who's tried and failed to find peace in every familiar place: fame, music, marriage, and even family. And while his story is unique, the themes aren't. Estrangement, misunderstood illness, the longing for validation, these aren't reserved for celebrities. They're deeply human. What makes Elijah's case particularly tragic is that he had the tools, a platform, talent, history, but not the safe space to grow into himself without conflict. And in that way, his story becomes a mirror, a reminder that behind the glamour, real people are still just people, trying to be heard, trying to be whole.